What's good, YouTube? Quinn Wade basketball analysis. Today, we're going to talk about James Harden. People said he's not an MVP candidate. They say he's top 3. I'm going to be real with the people. Y'all know I keep it real. Whether people subscribe, unsubscribe, or like or dislike the video, I'm going to keep it real and tell you my opinion. And I feel like James Harden has been one of the most overlooked and underrated players. Yes, he does flop a little bit in the playoffs. He flopped in that finals against the Heat. He flopped against a little bit against the San Antonio Spurs. He flopped a little bit in that clinching game against the Warriors when they went to the Western Conference Finals. But he is a franchise player because he can lead your team to the playoffs. His first year in Houston, he led a team with Chandler Parsons, Jeremy Lin, and Omer Ashik to the playoffs. They had Kevin Martin, they had Luis Scola, and they could not make the play. They kept getting closer and close. They trade for James Harden, one player, and they instantly became a playoff team ever since. And they ended up making the Western Conference Finals since then. They actually got to the second round last year, which means they are a contender for the playoffs, because if you can move in around, have a chance. They just went against a tough San Antonio team, and they in the West, so they had to go against a tough team early. But at the same time, I got to give credit. I feel like James Harden been overlooked because of the Steph Curry. I feel like he carried the team without his second best player, which was Dwight Howard at the time, to a 55 second place in the West, the hardest conference, and he didn't get enough respect for that. He lose the scoring title to Russell Westbrook because he put up more points in a short amount of time. He had started his season late because he had knee injuries, and he was able to outscore James Harden by the end of the season. Steph Curry won that MVP, and Russell Westbrook went home with the scoring title. Yes, I know you can say we give him credit. He's an all-star. We give him credit. He's an all-NBA player. But when it comes to the MVP, he has really been snubbed. I feel like at worst they should have went co-MVP with Steph Curry and James Harden. Obviously, Steph Curry averaged 30 on 50. You have to give him MVP, and I'm not disputing that. But even last year, he won 55 games, led his team to one of the best records in the West, and he was able to put up near triple-double numbers, lead the league in assists, still give you almost 30 a game, and he won almost 10 games more than Russell Westbrook, but he finished second in MVP voting. That don't even make any sense. Usually it's about wins. Usually it's about making a run in the playoffs. He put out Russell, and Russell embarrassed himself in that series, and at the end of the day, he still didn't get the MVP. It went to Russell, even though he put up similar numbers. Obviously, Russell's was a little better because he had to do more, but James Harden was just as close, and he won significantly amount of more games. And on top of that, I want to talk about Chris Paul. Chris Paul has been gone since the first game of the season, and the Rockets end up still beating the Golden State Warriors that day. And honestly, they're tied for the second best record in the NBA with the Detroit Pistons, the Golden State Warriors. They all at 10-3, and the Celtics is the #1 seed in the whole NBA with 12-2. And James Harden still is beneath Giannis, even though Giannis is averaging 31 and almost 10 rebounds. James Harden averaging almost a triple-double, and well, a double-double. And he still has been averaging 30 points a game as of today. And they're still saying that Giannis, who don't even have a playoff record, is the MVP front runner, while James Harden already won 10 games and tied for the second best record in the NBA and tied for the #1 team in the Western Conference. And they own the tiebreaker over Golden State because they beat them already in Game 1. And the guy is still not really getting that much credit for MVP. He's still second in MVP when he's has these type of numbers and still winning games and have a better record than Giannis by a long shot, and he's in a tougher conference. So I'm looking like, what's the criteria for the MVP? Because and the same thing about the coaches. They're firing coaches that will make the playoffs. They fired David Blatt. He was making the playoffs. He had the #1 team in the East, and he still got fired winning games, getting them to the finals without Kyrie missing majority of the finals. They still won 2 games. He helped get the team to the finals. And all of a sudden, David Blatt get fired with the #1 team in the East. And then he get replaced by Coach Tyronn Lue. And now I'm starting to wonder the same thing about MVP. What is the criteria? Do you have to put numbers up? Do you have to carry a team? He carried the team without Dwight Howard to second in the NBA in the Western Conference. and he still didn't get MVP over Kerr, or at least co-MVPs. Russell Westbrook went 47, 48 games and won MVP for doing damn near the same thing James Harden did. The only difference is James Harden finished second and Westbrook won the MVP. So it's kind of hypocritical to me. Obviously, we got our own opinions, and obviously the voters do too. But I gotta be real. I think that if I had to pick an MVP, Kyrie hasn't really been putting up the numbers. Yes, they have been winning. Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond they're not putting up the numbers. Golden State, they have the best team, not just the best players. Even though Steph Curry and Kevin Durant are the best players, I mean, two of the best players in the league. They're top 10 players. And honestly, if I had to pick one player for my MVP, it most definitely be James Harden. 30.5 points a game, 9.8 assists a game, 4.8 rebounds. Obviously, he settles for threes and shoots a bunch of contested threes and tough threes. He's shooting 45 from the field. He's still giving you 80% from the free throw line, and he's giving you a steal a game. And the guy still is not even being considered as the front runner for the MVP, even though his team is second in the West and he's putting up 30 points a game and still giving you almost 10 assists a game. And Giannis is giving you 31 and 10 rebounds and a couple assists. And James Harden giving you a couple rebounds, more better from the three-point line. He's shooting worse from the field goal, but he's shooting significantly better from the three-point line. I'm looking like, and he has significantly more wins than his team is in the playoffs and one tied for basically the number one seed in the West. And the dude still ain't getting MVP credit. And that's just for all like Rockets fans, and that's just being real. What do James Harden have to do to win MVP? You know, I'm not the biggest James Harden fan. I think he's one of the top 5 players in the league, and that's giving him respect, not to be biased or favoritism. But what do the man have to do to even be considered the MVP? What does he have to do to win the MVP at this point? Because he damn near did everything that they crowned the other MVPs for, and he does it, and he's overlooked. Remember, he didn't even make an All-NBA team one year when he put up some crazy numbers. Even though his team was 500 going into the playoffs, he still averaged some beastly numbers, and then they left him off the All-NBA team. And I'm looking like, what is going on? They don't show love to James Harden, and he deserves it. Another thing is, will Chris Paul hurt his chances of winning MVP? For what I've seen, and this is a sample size, this is not something they should take serious, but for what I've seen in preseason, James Harden has shown that he can play with James Harden. And James Harden has shown that even though he plays with Chris Paul, he can still give you 7 to 10 assists a game, which is around his average, that he can average 7 or more. And even that's when playing with Chris Paul, he still was able to get damn near close to or a double-double, even playing with Chris Paul, even though it's a sample size. So I don't really think that Chris Paul going to take away from his numbers as much as people think, because they have so many shooters that they can always kick out to a shooter. They can always break down the defense. They can always get out in transition. He's going to get a lot of shots because he still is the man in Houston, even though Chris Paul is just as good as him to me. I feel like he can still average those numbers with Chris Paul, because Chris Paul can shoot the three. He can knock down mid-range, and he's not afraid to play off the ball, because he played off the ball with Eric Bledsoe. He played off the ball with Jamal Crawford and Austin Rivers when they was on the court, and he was still effective and efficient in those minutes with lower, superior players compared to James Harden, who's a significantly better player than all the people I just named. And Chris Paul was still able to get his 10 assists and close to 20 points playing off the ball or playing with the ball. And James Harden obviously is one of the best ball handlers in the game. He's one of the best creators in the game. He's one of the better, well-rounded offensive players in the game. And I don't really think that Chris Paul going to take as much as people think from him, because they're both unselfish players and they both want to win. Obviously, James Harden has been winning without Chris Paul, but he did that last year and all the other years before, so I'm really not surprised. Plus, this team fits his style of play, and this team is built to be James Harden. I want to drive, I want to kick, I want to shoot threes, and I have a bunch of players on and off the bench that can knock down threes at any given time, can catch fire, and at worst I get a one-on-one when nobody in the world can guard James Harden, probably besides Iguodala and Draymond Green. And if I'm not playing against those guys, or in Kawhi Leonard, I have a good matchup that day because I'm going to get 20 to 30 points a game, get a couple 7, 8, 9, 10 assists, and on top of that, I'm going to shoot significantly enough to help my team win it and cause enough distraction to where they're going to get open looks throughout the game. So I like James Harden. I like what he's been doing. I just want to know, what do James Harden have to do to win MVP? He hasn't really been getting that much love from the media. He hasn't really been getting that much love from the people that dictate the MVP, but he finished second, he finished third, and now he has a chance to finish first because I doubt that KD or Steph get MVP. I doubt if Giannis cannot continue to win that he gets MVP, and if he doesn't finish as one of the top teams in the East, I see it hard to give him the MVP. Even though Giannis do have the numbers, he has to continue to win, and they're far behind when it comes to the top 3 teams in the East right now, record-wise. But they can always go on a win streak and make it close by the end of the season. So I'm not going to lie about that. So let me know what you guys think about James Harden. Is he your front runner for MVP? Should he win MVP if the Rockets are number 2, number 3 in the West, and he's still playing good and putting up the numbers? And I think that they can finish too. Only team I can see passing them up is Golden State and San Antonio when Kawhi Leonard gets back. Other than that, I think they're the 3rd best team in the West, tied 4th with OKC, but they're having chemistry problems, which can dig them in a little bit of a hole. Plus, they still going to have to figure out each other throughout the rest of the year, giving James Harden a bigger advantage because he's already off to a better start than them. Plus, on top of that, he already has the chemistry with his teammates besides Chris Paul. And like I said, when they play together, they haven't really, to me, changed that much of their game. Because like I said, he played off the ball and on the ball at OKC, and same with Chris Paul. And when I seen them together, they still get their points and their assists. Even though Chris Paul struggled the first game of the season, he's not going to struggle the whole season. So he do need another ball handler. He do need to get breaks off the ball, and he do need to get easy baskets, and that's something that Chris Paul is going to allow him to get. But he's still going to take a lot of shots. He's still going to make a lot of plays, and that's going to help him have a case for the MVP. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis signing out. Check out my website, analysisplayground.com. Link will be in the description, comment section below. Also, check out my website, analysisplayground.com. Link will be in the description, comment section below. Sign up for the website, become a user. Also, check out my Facebook page. Like to show support is all I'm asking you guys to do. And if you enjoyed the video, like this video. Quinn Wade, I'm gone. And let me know what you guys think about James Harden and the Houston Rockets. Yes, they're a contender. Yes, they're one of the best teams in the entire league. And yes, James Harden can make that much of a difference because he's been doing it since day one that he stepped in the Houston Rocket locker room.